Variant readings. The answer to the first question is that the Quran is only what is recorded in the Musaf and which, except for some areas of North Africa, is recited by a vast majority of the Muslim Ummah. None else except the reading on which this Quran is recited is the Quran, or can be presented in the capacity and status of the Quran. Thus, we think that this question does not even arise. In the following paragraphs, we shall present the details of this view. The Quran says, سَنُقْرِئُكَ فَلَا تَنْسَى إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ إِنَّهُ يَعْلَمُ الْجَهْرَ وَمَا يَخْفَى. Soon we shall recite all of it to you, O Prophet. Then you will not forget except what Allah pleases. He indeed knows what is apparent before you at this time, and that also which is concealed from you. Surah number 87, verses 6 and 7. At another place, the Quran says, لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به إن علينا جمعه وقرآنه فإذا قرأناه فاتبع قرآنه ثم إن علينا بيانه. To acquire this Quran swiftly, O Prophet, do not move your tongue hastily over it. Indeed, upon us is its collection and recital. So when we have recited it, follow this recital of ours. Then upon us is to explain it wherever need be. Surah number 75, verses 16 to 19. The scheme of God regarding the revelation and collection of the Quran mentioned in these verses can be stated as follows. Firstly, the Prophet ﷺ has been told that the way the Quran is being revealed piecemeal to him, keeping in view the circumstances, is the correct way of revelation. However, he should not worry about its protection and collection and arrangement. A new recital would ensue after this chronological one. At that time, if the Almighty intends to revoke something on the basis of His wisdom, He will do so, and then have the Prophet ﷺ read it in a manner that he will not forget any part of it, and the Quran will be consigned to him in its very final form, which will remain protected. Secondly, this second recital would take place once the Quran has been arranged in the form of a book, and simultaneously he would be bound to follow this recital in future. He would then not be allowed to read the Quran according to its previous recital. Thirdly, it was told that if any directive needed further explanation, it would be done so at this second recital, and in this manner this book would stand completed in every way after collection and arrangement and explanation by the Almighty Himself. It is this second and final recital of the Quran which is also termed as Al-Arza Al-Akhira, or the final presentation. It is evident from various narratives that each year Gabriel would read out the Quran revealed in that year to the Prophet ﷺ during the month of Ramadan. In the last year, in the Al-Arza Al-Akhira, he read out the Quran to him twice. Abu Huraira radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu narrates, each year the Quran would be read out to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ once. However, the year he died, it was read out to him twice. The Prophet ﷺ used to read the Quran on this recital till he died. After him, the rightly guided caliphs and all the companions radhiyallahu anhum from among the Muhajirun and the Ansar will read the Quran on this recital. There was no difference in this regard between them. Later, it was this recital which was called Al-Qira'atul Amma. Abu Abdul Rahman as-Sulami reports, the reading of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman and Zayd ibn Sabit and that of all the Muhajirun and the Ansar was the same. They would read the Quran according to the Al-Qira'atul Amma. This is the same reading which was read out twice by the Prophet ﷺ to Gabriel in the year of his death. Zayd ibn Sabit was also present in this reading called the Al-Arza Al-Akhira. It was this very reading which he taught the Quran to people till his death. Zarkashi, Al-Burhan fi Ulum al-Quran, Volume 1, page 237. Consequently, it is only this recital which possesses oral tawatur from the time of the companions radhiyallahu ta'ala anhum to date. Our scholars generally call it the Qira'at of Hafs, whereas it is actually Al-Qira'atul Amma, and classical scholars, as pointed out above, actually introduce it by this name. Ibn Sirin writes, "The reading on which the Quran was read out to the Prophet ﷺ in the year of his death is the same according to which people are reading the Quran today." Jalaluddin Suyuti, Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran, Volume 1, page 177. If the Quran is deliberated upon in the light of its coherence and arrangement, internal evidence from within the Quran also pronounces this very judgment. The work which has been done by the scholars of the Farai school of thought on the Quran in recent times speaks volumes that the text of the Quran does not accept the variant readings. A person can see examples of this at many instances in Islahi's Tadabbur-e-Quran. He writes, "Differences in variant readings have also been resolved in this commentary. The conventional and mutawatir reading is only the one on which the Quran has been written, which we have in our hands. In this reading, the interpretation of each and every word and verse of the Quran is done in such a manner in the light of classical Arabic literature, coherence, and parallels of the Quran that no doubt remains. Consequently, I have interpreted each verse on the basis of this reading and can say with full confidence that if this interpretation is done on the basis of some other readings, then it can only be done at the expense of sacrificing the eloquence, wisdom, and meaningfulness of the Quran. Here it is possible that the narrative on the 7 ahruf might cause some confusion to some people in this regard. The narrative reads, Abdur Rahman ibn Abdul Qari narrated, Umar ibn al-Khattab said before me, I heard Hisham ibn Hakim ibn Hizam reading Surah Furqan in a different way from the one I used to read it, and the Prophet ﷺ himself had read out this surah to me. Consequently, as soon as I heard him, I wanted to get hold of him. However, I gave him respite until he had finished the prayer. Then I got hold of his cloak and dragged him to the Prophet ﷺ. I said to him, I have heard this person, referring to Hisham ibn Hakim ibn Hizam, reading Surah Furqan in a different way from the one you had read it out to me. The Prophet ﷺ said, Leave him alone, O Omar. Then he said to Hisham, Read it. Omar said, he read it out in the same way as he had done earlier. At this, the Prophet ﷺ said, It was revealed thus. Then the Prophet ﷺ asked me to read it out. So I read it out. At this, he said, It was revealed thus. This Quran has been revealed in 7 ahruf. You can read it in any of them you find easy from among others. Imam Malik, Al-Mu'atta, page 130, Hadith number 567. If the following points about this narrative are kept in contemplation, it becomes evident that it is an absolutely meaningless narrative which should not be considered of any worth in this regard. Firstly, even though this narrative has been recorded in the basic books of Hadith literature, no one in history has ever been able to offer a convincing explanation of it, rendering it totally ambiguous. Suyuti has recorded several interpretations of this narrative, and then, while acknowledging the untenability of each of these, has confessed that this narrative should be regarded among the mutashabihat, whose meaning is only known to God. He writes, And to me the best opinion in this regard is that of the people who say that this hadith is from among the matters of mutashabihat, the meaning of which cannot be understood. Jalaluddin Suyuti, Tanweerul Hawalik, page 199. Secondly, the only plausible interpretation of the word ahruf is that it connotes dialects and pronunciations of words the Arabs were used to. However, in this case, the text of the hadith itself negates this meaning. It is known that Umar radhiyallahu anhu and Hisham radhiyallahu anhu belonged to the same tribe, the Quraysh. Obviously, people of the same tribe would not have had different dialects and pronunciations. Thirdly, even if it is accepted that this difference was of pronunciations and dialects between various tribes, and as a result they were allowed to read it variously, the verb unzila, which means was revealed, is very inappropriate. The Quran has specified that it was revealed in the language of the Prophet's tribe, the Quraysh. See, for example, Surah 19, verse 97, and Surah 44, verse 58. After this, it can be accepted that the various tribes were allowed to read it according to their own accents, but how can this be accepted that the Almighty Himself revealed the various dialects and pronunciations? Fourthly, it is known that Hisham had accepted Islam on the day Mecca was conquered. If this hadith is accepted, it would mean that even after the conquest of Mecca, senior companions and even a close associate like Umar radiallahu anhu was unaware of the fact that the Prophet ﷺ secretly taught the Quran in some other form and reading from the one openly heard from him and preserved in writing and in memory. Every person can realize how grave this claim is and how far-reaching its effects are. Same is the case of the narratives which record the collection of the Quran in the times of the Caliphs Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Uthman radiallahu anhu. The Quran specifies that it was arranged and collected in the time of the Prophet ﷺ under the guidance of the Almighty, as has been referred to earlier. On the other hand, these narratives present an entirely different picture, which is not only against the Quran, but also against common sense. In the 6 canonical books, these narratives are primarily recorded on the authority of Ibn Shihab Zuhri. Authorities of Rijal regard him to be guilty of tadlis and idraj. Besides these, if some other facets of his personality, as referred by Imam Lays ibn Sa'd in his letter to Imam Malik, are kept in consideration, none of the narratives reported by him regarding such important issues as this is acceptable. He writes, "And when we would meet Ibn Shihab, there would arise a difference of opinion in many issues. When any of us would ask him in writing about some issue, he, in spite of being so learned, would give 3 different answers, each of which would negate the other, and he would not even be aware of what he had already said. It is because of this that I have left him something which you did not like." Abbas ibn Muhammad al-Duri, Tarikh Yahya ibn Ma'in, volume number 2, page 375. Such is the reality behind these narratives. Consequently, this is an absolute truth that the Quran has only one reading, which is found in our codices. Besides this, the readings which are found in commentaries on the Quran, or are read and taught in our schools of religious instruction, or are even in currency in certain areas, are the remnants of those malignant campaigns from which no religious discipline of the Muslims has unfortunately remained protected. These readings may have arisen from the insistence of some on the reading on which the Quran was revealed before the Al-Arda Al-Akhira, and from the forgetfulness of the narrators, but later, owing to the same motives which led to the fabrication of hadith, they had become so rampant at the end of the Umayyad dynasty, several of them had become to prominence. It is said that Abu Ubaid Qasim ibn Salam selected 25 of them in his book. The 7 readings which are famous in current times were selected by Abu Bakr ibn Mujahid at the end of the 3rd century Hijrah. Thus, it is generally accepted that their number cannot be ascertained, but every reading is the Quran, which has been reported through a correct chain of narration, is compatible in any way with the Masahif prepared by Usman radiallahu anhu, and is correct from any aspect as far as the Arabic language is concerned. Some of these readings are regarded as mutawatir. However, a look at their chains of narration which are found in books leaves no doubt that they are ahad or isolate, and most of their narrators are suspect in the eyes of the Rijal authorities. Consequently, no scholar can even accept them as hadith, what to speak of the Quran.